Thank you for coming. And a big thank you to Ian for flying up for the evening. We're going to thank him, and in fact we've bribed him with dinner and a deep-fried Mars bar. And thanks to Murray for being such a hard act to follow. My first job in advertising was a brilliant introduction to agency life. I started out as an account executive, working for a creative agency called Campbell Stafford on the other side of town. A matter of months in, my account director got married and moved to London, leaving me in charge of Lidl food stores, printing 1 million leaflets a week, signing off 120 press ads, which were faxed through, black and white, for me to check and sign off, and negotiating with printers about black plate changes. I didn't have a mobile phone. I rarely checked my personal email account because people used landlines in those days. Facebook didn't exist, and Twitter was what birds said. How times change. However many years on, I've worked at some brilliant agencies with some really brilliant people, and I've loved every minute of it. So in the first instance, I struggled to think about things in our industry that I wanted to improve on. I thought harder. What bothered me about advertising today? What was important to me in this job that I love? And what would I like my chairmanship's legacy to be? It turned out to be pretty easy to alight on things that I'd like to address. But this has much more to do with you, our member agencies, and making sure that the IPA is doing the best possible job of representing the interests of you all across Scotland at this point in time. So, a planner's favourite recourse, research. I talked to anyone that would listen. Agency heads, people in the middle juggling a family and career ambitions, and the great white hope of our industry in Scotland today, the bright-eyed and bushy-tailed lot that have just sat the foundation certificate for the IPA in Scotland. The first step was easy. I was chatting to a friend with an 11-year-old daughter, Miriam. What does she want to do when she grows up? I said. Well, said Siobhan, 3 ideas. She wants to be a defence lawyer, a paediatric oncologist, or a fashion designer. I only hope she's not a fashion designer, said Siobhan. Perhaps I raised an eyebrow. Why ever not? Well, said Siobhan, it's not exactly a career to be proud of, is it? So that got me thinking. The creative industries, particularly in this current floundering economy, constitute an increasingly large part of our national GDP. Creative Scotland estimated that in 2010, the creative industries in Scotland contributed a whopping £3,690 million to the Scottish economy. Now, Murray has done a storming job of petitioning the government up here to pay a bit more attention to the creative industries, and all of his efforts suggest they need a bit more encouragement. So how? How do we get the government to pay attention to us when increasing numbers of local clients seem increasingly interested in working with agencies outside Scotland? And how do we get the parents of today, beyond the parents in this room, to consider the creative industries as a viable career choice for their kids? There's an easy answer to this. We need to get better at what we do. Now I can feel you staring at me slightly resentfully. I'm not saying we're not good. I'm saying I think we can get better. Whether we're headed out of a double or into a triple dip recession, I don't think anyone will disagree that advertising agencies in Scotland are having a bit of a difficult time of it at the moment. Budgets have been cut and cut. Agencies make cutbacks to cope. With fewer people, in-house training is an easy corner to cut. But if we're not spending time now helping the bright-eyed and bushy-tailed to learn more about our industry, why then do we expect them to stick around? At the most recent IPA Council meeting, Nicola Mendelsohn shared some figures about graduate recruitment in the UK. Graduates on average expect to earn £22,800 when they start out. The average starting salary at agencies in London is something like £18,000, and outside of London, it's obviously considerably less, sometimes. One of the problems that we've all had in recent years when it comes to talent retention is the magnetic lure of London. We've had brilliant graduates queuing up for jobs. They'll stay here for a few years and then set sail for London or Australia to work with bigger budgets and command larger salaries under sunnier skies. What were we doing wrong, I wondered? So, more research. I asked the people that most recently sat the foundation certificate in Scotland about their career prospects, whether they plan to stay in advertising and whether they plan to stay in Scotland. Based on their 1 to 2 years of experience, 90% of them wanted to stay in advertising. A good start. But Scotland? I would like to stay in Scotland, but the best agencies are London-centric or English at least. If we want to keep them here, we need to think about how we're structuring our agencies to make sure they're getting a career path that keeps them interested. And we need to think about how we're training these best and brightest recruits. I asked them about training. Had they received more or less training than they'd expected as part of their jobs? The IPA have provided more training opportunities than I expected, but internally, training has been pretty sparse. We need to get smarter at running our own training in-house. We all know stuff, after all. And then we need to be smart about what we're offering when it comes to external training in days when budgets are tight. The IPA can help here. Sonia does a great job of corralling you all into choosing the training courses that will be most relevant to your staff every year. So keep talking to her, and the IPA will continue to do its best to offer a varied range of courses in Scotland. I have a commitment from London to bring more of their courses north. Working with Ben Quigley, Chairman for England and Wales, and Stephen Roycroft in Northern Ireland, we'll be collaborating to make sure that we're getting more of the most popular training sessions in London on our doorstep. One of the things that can be lacking in smaller agencies is peer support, just through a simple numbers game. So we'll be setting up regular account management breakfasts, thanks Ollie for the suggestion, to give people the chance to share thoughts and ideas about the things bothering them when it comes to doing their job. We have the appetite here in spade loads, but when budgets are tighter than ever, we need to make it easy for people to learn, to get better at what they do. We also need to get better at using all of the wisdom and insight that the IPA devote huge energy and effort to providing. How many times have clients asked, but will it work? And we scratch an answer on a post-it note. I was lucky enough to stumble into a presentation in Adweek from Les Binnett and Peter Field. They're about to publish a paper. This is a terrible photo, but you can kind of make out Ian. They're about to publish a paper called The Long and the Short of It. It draws on 30 years of IPA effectiveness papers and case studies to create a watertight justification for the continued importance of people with our skills and expertise in this branch of the creative industries. Short term doesn't work in advertising, is their message. You can run a price promotion, you can put a bog off on a tin of beans, you can run a one-off ad campaign to persuade retailers to stock a new product. But tactical short-term activity won't shift your share price in the right direction. And when it comes to behaviour change, it won't win hearts and minds. Delightfully, and as a planner, I'm particularly excited about this, Les has agreed to come up here and talk to us about it. Whenever you find yourself with an unanswered question, I can heartily recommend the IPA website. There's bucket loads of stuff on there. Presentations, online training, films of events. They've just launched a commercial certificate that offers online training on the commercial dealings between agency and client, and also on how agency finances work. Any self-respecting account director should have sat their leg regs, though I'm hardly practicing what I preach. I vowed I'd complete the 15 hours of online training for the search certificate before tonight. I'm an hour into it. But that goes back to my very first point. The reason I've always loved working in Scotland is that we're smaller, agencies are smaller. For a control freak like me, you get to do more. We have the opportunity to learn as much as the agencies in the rest of the UK, to access all of that insight and innovation with the help of the IPA, and get government inside Scotland and the clients and trade press outside Scotland sitting up and paying attention. The other thing that bothers me, and I know I'm not alone in this either, is digital. I met a man at Adweek called Karl-Heinz Lunt, who describes himself as a digital Darwinist. He showed me a picture of his book on his iPad, and he told me excitedly that digital is the new black. If I'm being pedantic, that quote bothers me, but I do agree that the way that we communicate with each other in digital channels is continually being reinvented. And inevitably, that means it's hard for people to keep up. I think we're all right at talking about digital communications. Yes, it's a channel we need to consider, and yes, clients should be considering, if they haven't already, how they're presenting their brands in that environment. But how much are we blazing a trail when it comes to taking that chat and turning it into something smart? There are some cracking digital agencies in Scotland, but it's about the all-round package. Clients need media agencies that know what to buy, and they need creative agencies who think about the big idea and how it works across channels. It's not just about adding a hashtag to pretend the idea is social too. More than 40,000 jobs are accounted for in Scotland by the digital media sector. Digital media makes up 65% of our creative industries in Scotland. We're all moaning about how budgets are being cut, but in many cases, it's not that clients aren't spending the money, they're just spending it differently. The Advertising Association, and Ian's told you this already, so sorry, estimate that currently 33% of client marketing spend is going to digital activity. Stuart Cosgrove, chair of the Scottish Digital Media Advisory Group, said recently, Scotland has always had a bit of a disconnect between creativity and business. We should be leading the way when it comes to doing something about that. 52% of people in the digital and IT industries are expecting to have to recruit new talent from outside the country, from outside Scotland. And yet our graduates are disappearing out of Scotland because they don't see the opportunities. We need to reframe the way that we're thinking about our industry. The first step is easy. Practice what we preach. We can hardly lecture clients on how to talk to their audiences on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Google+, if we're not reasonably familiar with these ways of interacting with people ourselves. We're thinking about it already in Scotland from an IPA standpoint. With the help of Dwayne, we've set up a digital forum with representatives across member agencies with a remit to evangelise about all things digital. We're putting together a programme of training events to be provided up here by people like Google, Microsoft, and Facebook to make sure that we're fully briefed on everything that is possible. But I'd like to take things a step further. Borrowing from Ian's idea, thank you, about creating a client council, I'd like to do the same. But our client council will look at how clients and agencies can get better together at embracing digital technologies. We've invited representatives from some of the smartest clients working out of Scotland, the Scottish Government, Visit Scotland, former head of marketing at leading online brand S1, and will encourage the council to consider the skills gaps we have as an industry and how we might best address them, so that we can be turning out things like this. In 2 years' time, thanks to people taking a little bit more time to offer training in-house, sending their people on a few more training courses, getting their heads around not just the fact that digital is the new black, but what we do about that, to generally getting a little bit smarter, I want to be able, by the end of my tenure, to stand up here and say Scottish agencies were first to, and over to you. A twofold strategy then, training to tackle talent retention and digital evangelism. That should be plenty to keep me going. I asked Murray for his advice on how to approach this impending chairmanship, and he said two things. Don't try and do too much, and get other people to help. On that note, thanks already to Sarah and Sonia for keeping this whole show on the road. Thanks to Laura Haggerty for leading our digital forum, and to Kate Casey, also at Cara, for taking care of our social forum. Thank you also, a very big thank you, to Scott at the Union for being such an enthusiastic supporter of the IPA and its activities on Twitter. The one thing I haven't talked about today is being a girl. Not wholly relevant to the task in hand, right? Aside from the fact that there have only ever been chairmen of the IPA in Scotland, I wouldn't describe myself as a feminist. And the so-called glass ceiling doesn't seem to be a huge problem in Scotland. I know, the IPA Insight team sent me the figures. But as the first female to do the job here, I feel duty-bound to say something. So I'd like to settle for the one thing that has really helped me get on in my career, and that is my mentor, to whom, thank you. So for girls in Scotland who might be struggling with some of the things I've tussled with over the years, and for boys too, I'm delighted to officially launch the IPA's one-to-one mentoring scheme in Scotland. It's a bit like eHarmony. You go to the website, fill out your details, explain what you're looking for, and they'll match you with someone that can help. Ben, I do hope you'll try it. So let's look after our people, and by doing so, create an industry that's blazing a trail. And together, we should have another 2 years to be proud of. Thank you.